part of it is through just personal experience. When I first started, I'm from St. Louis. I was born and raised here. And growing up, I didn't hear anything about that area. Then I went to medical school and residency in California and fellowship in Florida. Then I came back and my first job was at Mercy. And I started doing surgeries on people for different cancers. And probably my first few years of practice, you ask people where they're from in St. Louis, and a lot of them would say, "Oh, I'm from this area, Bridgeton or Florissant, or somewhere in that area where it's near Coldwater Creek." And I started noticing, well, it seems like I'm taking care of a lot of people and a lot of neighbors, and at some points, husband, wife that both developed kidney cancer, for instance. It didn't really make a lot of sense, and sometimes I took it as, well, maybe it's just a terrible coincidence. And then as you researched it more, and I talked to epidemiologists at Washington University, some of my colleagues around town, and then researching it in great news organizations like yourself, you learn that, okay, there is something there actually, that the uranium processing that occurred through the Manhattan Project and how we disposed of it, these people had a higher risk of developing cancer, and it's been shown in the epidemiology. And so it started out just me seeing a few cases myself as a surgeon, and then as we kind of moved on and researched it more, you kind of realized it was a much bigger issue than we originally thought. Probably started here at Mercy around 2013 or 2014. After a few years of kind of doing surgery, probably 2018, 19, I started noticing that, well, I'm taking care of way too many. At first I thought maybe I do a lot of cancer surgery, so I just happened to take care of a lot of patients from that area. But it was just too coincidental, and then when you look at the research, there was enough stuff that warranted that, hey, there's an exposure there. And now, actually, I have a couple of PAs in my office, Rachel Bednar and Allison Johnson, who I've kind of trained with me the last few years. Part of our intake process when we talk to a new patient is, are you from the Coldwater Creek area? Because what it helps me understand then is a lot of people want to know, why did I get cancer, right? I never smoked. I'm not doing any kind of bad habits. My family's never had cancer, so why would I get cancer? I can't explain it. There's no causal I can't say this is exactly why, but it helps me say, well, you're from that area and maybe, there's some connection there. You're pretty young and you developed this thing. And as kind of government type of projects develop, such as the bill that Josh Hawley kind of sponsored and recently in the Congress, which is the Radiation Exposure Compensation Act, that type of legislation may help get passed if we start to recognize it in the medical community that, hey, this is a real risk factor. These people are getting exposures to things that we dealt with 50 years ago. It's an underserved population. Let's try to make it right. For me, I mainly deal with urologic cancer, so kidney, bladder, prostate, testicular, penile cancers. And what I noticed was, it was just odd to me that people were young. Typically, the way the biology of cancer works, the highest risk factor for developing cancer is age. If you're over 50 or 60, you just have a higher risk of getting cancer than somebody much younger than that. So when you see a 30 or 40-year-old who has cancer, it just is alarming in general. You're like, well, why did you get this? Is it your genetics? Did you have some odd exposures? I see sometimes in firefighters or people who are military veterans who are exposed to burn pits or some kind of odd environmental thing, or farmers or things that have pesticides, etc., overexposures, unusual amounts of exposure, I should say. And younger age, you start to think there's something else there. As we kind of at Mercy formed a precision medicine program and started early cancer detection program, where we do genomics and try to stratify a person's immediate and personal risk of what is their exact risk of developing a cancer, or any disease really. What we found was that we have to be able to do this in people who are higher risk, right? A regular person may not be over risk of having a cancer in general. Somebody who's not exposed to chemicals, who has no genetic risk. So the higher risk populations are who we need to kind of target. And the screening that we currently have for breast cancer, prostate cancer, colon cancer, lung cancer, and cervical cancer, that's standard screening, accounts for only about 25% of cancer deaths. 75% of cancer deaths occur in people who we don't have screening for. So having this kind of early cancer detection technology using multi-cancer early detection, we need to put it into the hands of people that don't get screened for those other cancers that we don't have screening for. So myself and the two other colleagues that were on the publication, one from Mayo Clinic and one from University of Wisconsin, we all originally kind of intermingled in St. Louis just through different kind of academic platforms. We decided that we have to bring attention to this in a national level, and luckily JAMA was willing to publish our article. That it was published in JAMA, and it specifically talked about how we can utilize the newest technologies in genomics that screen for potentially cancers that are not normally screened for in high-risk populations. And we thought the Coldwater Creek area was a great example of a high-risk population that doesn't even get potentially normal screening that well, to equalize the playing field by screening them with liquid biopsy. And what I mean by liquid biopsy is a simple blood test, whether it's blood, saliva, stool, or urine. This particular one is blood. It's an equalizer because you don't have to take time off work. You can just go and get a blood draw, or they can come to your house even for mobile phlebotomy. Basically, in the field of liquid biopsy, or what we call multi-cancer detection, is where we can screen for many, many cancers through one blood test. Right now, that test is actually not fully approved by insurance, so it's kind of cash pay. And that makes it sometimes inaccessible to people. We at Mercy are trying to mitigate that by pushing the envelope of having, governmental organizations step in, private enterprise, to make this test potentially eventually covered by insurance. And part of that is going to be to prove its worth through clinical trials. Once something is proved to be validated in large trials, then it gets insurance coverage, and then it gets widely kind of accepted, hopefully. So at Mercy, we're lucky because we have a Mercy research organization that is part of Mercy that runs clinical trials. And so we run national trials on all sorts of projects. One of the trials that is for multi-cancer detection is called the REACH study, and it's one of many trials, so it's an opportunity for patients to participate and potentially get a free screening test out of that. Once it's open, it's not open quite yet, our goal is to enroll the higher risk population to get tested in a way that's completely free and essentially, getting screened then through that trial essentially. I'm hoping, so nationally it's going to hopefully enroll about 50,000 people that are Medicare eligible, so it would have to be at a certain age group, but it's purposely trying to enroll 20% of underserved people, so that includes kind of the populations that we have that are at highest risk in the Coldwater Creek. Rural people, people from urban environments, people who are just not really accessing care in a high way. So it's purposely trying to enroll patients who are in that kind of category. And hopefully in the St. Louis area, we would hope that we can enroll at least 1,000 or 2,000 people, honestly. Since it's not covered by insurance, it is around $900 or so. So it is an expensive test. And I think that we're trying our hardest to make it more accessible to people as a ministry of Catholic healthcare. And so I think having a Mercy kind of adopt this type of program is really beneficial to the push to get it equitable, because that's what we've done our whole 200 years of existence, is try to make care accessible, give people care where it's supposed to be, where their community is. It's hard to say with these trials because we're still working on making sure that trial can happen in the St. Louis area. I'm hopeful that in the next 6 months we'll have some answers about, let's get this trial going. And the good news is, if that's not the trial, we have several other trials that hopefully people will be able to enroll in that are in the works, basically. So if that specific trial does not end up panning out in the St. Louis area, we have other options. So the hope is not lost. And I will not stop until we get some type of trial for these people. In the selection of trial, there's a lot of funding issues. So the government has to help fund that trial to say, hey, it's expensive to run those trials. Part of it is also to make sure we make a case, which hopefully this interview even helps with, is it's important to do that trial in St. Louis. That don't just concentrate on the coasts, West Coast, East Coast. Don't just concentrate on the bigger cities because, hey, this is St. Louis, even though we're in the Midwest. We make a difference and we matter, And it brings upon me a little bit of emotion because this is what I've spent my whole career for. I love taking care of patients, and they're part of my life. And so you're not forgotten. You have people like me and so many others besides me that are constantly working to push the field to say every patient needs to be taken care of, every patient needs to be recognized for the risk that they may have, and we won't stop. I'm telling you, we won't stop. And that's my message to the Just Moms group, that you have allies, you have so many people that are so thankful to you guys at the Just Moms group and others like you to create this awareness, to make it so that it's easier for me to help people. You know, honestly, they've made it so that we can help more people.